as we go into this morning, I'm just really delighted and very honored that Will McEntee is back with us. And I want to share a word about Will, and I want to share a word about Will associated with this bee, the bee that's part of our picture of a rural renaissance. Bee that I'm wearing on my jacket as well. My dear husband gave this little bee to me. But the idea behind this bee, and it's specific. The designer that we worked with is very specific, is pollinating, right? Like we go forth from a place like this, we share ideas, we go from flower to flower. We can all imagine like the sweet little picture of a happy little bee going from flower to flower, but sharing the word, and really evangelizing the ideas and the information and the get it done spirit that we all have here together. And no one really epitomizes that more beautifully than Will McEntee. And Will has been leading a whole lot of rural policy for these past 4 years, and before then too. Will is an original dating back to Team Obama, right? Rural policy. But one of Will's visions, and one of the things that he has really been working to institutionalize at the federal level and institutionalize around the country, is the Rural Partners Network. Because Will's not the only little bee. There are a whole lot of other bees, out there sharing the word and getting good things done, and getting programs, really deeply embedded at the local community level, and making sure that money and ideas and intention and opportunity are flowing into communities that have really been kind of forgotten and left out, and maybe didn't have the capacity to participate and kind of keep banging on that door on their own. So I'm so grateful that Will, who himself is a rural boy from Iowa, is here to talk with us about the Rural Partners Network and more as we go into this, our final morning together. So Will, please buzz on up.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And Michelle, thank you for having me again after last year. Had such an incredible time in Arkansas. I don't know how many folks had the opportunity to make the trip to Bentonville, but the Groundswell team does such a great job bringing communities together, bringing leaders across this space together, and it's just incredible to be back here in Macon, and can't thank you enough for the partnership over the past 4 years, and even before then on the campaign and during the transition into the Biden-Harris administration. As Michelle mentioned, I'm Will McEntee. I'm Director of Strategic Engagement in the White House Office of Public Engagement, which is kind of a vague title because I handle a few different issue areas in the Office of Public Engagement, but chief among those, and the reason why I'm here is because I lead rural and agriculture engagement in the White House Office of Public Engagement. And our office is really often referred to as the front door to the White House, because we're really the public-facing wing of the White House that interacts with stakeholders across the country, interacts with community leaders, with really stakeholders across the country, both to listen and to learn about the issues and priorities that your communities face. And to make sure that those issues are shared with the president, the vice president, with our colleagues across the administration, but also to have the opportunity to celebrate with you as we make these historic investments through the Biden-Harris administration, through the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS and Science Act. And we've had a lot to celebrate these past few years, really in large part, thanks to the coalition here in this room and to rural community leaders across the country who have spoken up about the needs that their communities have, spoken up about the opportunities presented through these investments, through the investments in infrastructure, through the investments in clean energy, and ensuring that everyone has equal access to these resources, which has been really the hallmark of the work that this administration has done. And I'll just really kind of speak from a high level, because I know we've got folks from across the administration here, from the Department of Energy, Department of Treasury, here to speak with you a little and drill down a little bit more into the specifics. But through this this past 4 years, have had the opportunity to travel to rural communities across the country, again, to listen and to learn, both as we're implementing these programs in the lead up to some of these major pieces of legislation that this administration has been able to steward, thanks to the support from Congress. And also to celebrate again with President Biden, Vice President Harris, who have had many opportunities to get out to rural communities to celebrate some of these major investments. Whether it's President Biden just a couple of months ago visiting a rural electric cooperative in Northwest Wisconsin to celebrate the New Era program, which is helping rural electric cooperatives to transition to clean energy and providing thousands of jobs in the process, or to a farm in Minnesota that is utilizing Rural Energy for America program dollars to invest in solar on the farm and invest in other clean energy resources in the area as well. And it's just been incredible to have this opportunity to both learn from these leaders, but also to see this work take place in communities across the country. Again, in large part thanks to your efforts. And I'm really here, and the biggest reason I wanted to be here, especially after this past week, is really just to say thank you to everyone in this room for all that you have done, both to push for the Inflation Reduction Act, these much needed resources that will, again, is the largest investment in our climate in history, but is also a huge opportunity economically, and as the president likes to say, is really not just a climate investment, but it's an investment in jobs as well. And we know and are seeing the impact already in our rural communities, and so we are always excited to celebrate that with you. And we're just so grateful to all of those in this room that are working to implement these programs and who will continue to ensure that these programs are successful and meet the needs of our communities across the country. And I want to spend a little time on just how the Biden-Harris administration has worked to create opportunities in rural America, and why this work is so important to us. As Michelle mentioned, I'm a kid from Iowa, and these issues are certainly personal to me, in the community where I was raised, and to my family. I know it's personal to really everyone in this room who either grew up or has worked in rural communities and has witnessed really the lack of investment, but also sees the light and the opportunity and the potential that our rural communities have. And that's what this administration has been really working hard to untap, and we've really done in partnership with organizations and community leaders like folks in this room. And it really comes back to President Biden and Vice President Harris's belief that no one should lack opportunity because of their zip code. Today, in too many rural communities, including back in my hometown in Iowa, young people feel that they have to leave home to find opportunity. And through the historic investments from the American Rescue Plan, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, this administration has been laser focused on empowering places that have historically been underinvested in. And on day one in office, President Biden signed an executive order on advancing racial equity and equity for underserved communities. And in that order, he ordered federal agencies to create opportunity in rural and underserved communities. And so all of this has been intentional, and it's been all the programs that we've been implementing have been designed to ensure that they are meeting the needs of rural communities. And it's been incredible to see the work across federal agencies to do that, especially, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, through the work of the Rural Partners Network, which is really kind of our whole of government approach to providing rural development, empowering community leaders in the communities that are involved. Currently there's 37 different community networks in 10 different states in Puerto Rico that have been part of this Rural Partners Network program that we created at the beginning of the administration, that have a community liaison that's been hired by the federal government, who acts as a liaison to every federal agency throughout the federal government. And each agency that's part of the Rural Partners Network, and all of the regional commissions as well, have a rural desk officer that works with those community liaisons and works with the community leaders on the ground in these communities that have been selected because they are some of the really persistent poverty counties in these states and in these communities. And we've had the opportunity to come here to Georgia several times. Georgia is part of the Rural Partners Network. Many of the counties in Southwest Georgia and that work through the Southwest Georgia Regional Commission are a part of the Rural Partners Network. And we've seen how when community leaders have the opportunity to come together to prioritize some of the issues in their communities, some of the investments that are needed, and have that resource in that community liaison who's able to connect the dots between that community and the resources available at the federal agencies. We've seen how that has made an impact in those communities, being able to identify those resources that can help, again, untap that economic development or workforce development potential, untap those resources for the needed infrastructure, whether it's clean energy, clean water, high-speed internet, whatever those infrastructure needs may be. And it's just been incredible to see how that work has played out already, just in the 3 years since that program has been stood up. And you can learn more about this program and the community networks that exist in the Rural Partners Network today at rural.gov, which has information both on the Rural Partners Network, some of the success stories that we've seen in those communities over the past 3 years, but also some of we've kept a database there of some of the resources that are available for rural communities there on the website as well. So it's a helpful resource. Ever since President Biden signed that day one executive order, we've really been hard at work with partners like all of you to make these investments a reality on the ground as we've passed some of these major pieces of legislation. And we all know that these investments are really long overdue. Through the American Rescue Plan, we started by providing resources to help communities combat COVID-19 and support rural economies by investing in rural health, providing direct economic assistance to rural towns and counties, many times for the first time ever that these localities had ever received direct federal assistance. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law, we're making sure that rural communities have critical infrastructure and services by delivering high-speed internet, funding rural transportation options, building better roads and bridges, improving our road safety, investing in the electric grid in rural airports, including a $1 million investment here in the Middle Georgia Regional Airport in Macon to improve the runway here locally, in ports, in locks and dams, and to ensure that everyone has access to clean drinking water by replacing lead pipes and investing in modern water and wastewater systems, which we know a lot of rural communities lack. Additionally, as folks in this room know, the Inflation Reduction Act makes historic investments to lower healthcare and energy costs, and it unleashes the clean energy economy in rural America. This law invests in rural communities to expand access to affordable clean energy, create good paying jobs through climate smart agriculture and conservation, and to protect communities from intensifying climate impacts that we've seen far too often, including here in Georgia and in North Carolina, who have been impacted recently by Hurricane Helene, and down in Florida, which was also impacted by Hurricane Milton. And we've had the opportunity, the president's had the opportunity to see some of that, the damage and the impacts in those communities. And if there are folks here in the room that have been impacted by those storms, just want to say our thoughts continue to be with you. And as the president has said, we will not leave those communities behind. And he has made sure that we've tapped into every resource available. But it goes without saying that those intensifying climate impacts are all the more reason why we need the investments from the Inflation Reduction Act, why the work that you're doing in your communities is that important. Through the law's direct pay provisions, for the first time, tax-exempt and governmental entities are able to receive a payment for tax credits, including by generating clean electricity through solar, wind, and battery storage projects, building community solar projects that bring clean energy to neighborhood families, installing EV charging infrastructure, and purchasing clean vehicles for state or city vehicle fleets. I know we've got Ronnie here who will talk a lot more and can speak in more detail about those tax credits, but you can learn more about those tax credits at whitehouse.gov/cleanenergy/direct-pay. You can make sure that folks have that website if you do not already. To date, this administration has announced over 63,000 specific infrastructure and clean energy projects in all 50 states and territories. That's huge. This means that nearly $150 billion in investments in communities across the country, including more than $11.7 billion investments here in Georgia alone. And this public funding is really unleashing private sector investment as well. That's what these investments are really intended to do, to ensure that they're linked to private sector investments that expand the reach of what these public dollars can do. And to date, we've seen private sector investments in manufacturing and clean energy totaling nearly $1 trillion. Again, that's trillion with a T in private sector investments. So it's been incredible to see that linkage and that key deliverable through these investments. We have launched improvements on over 165,000 miles of roads and launched nearly 9,400 bridge repair projects. We funded the replacement of more than 1.7 million toxic lead pipes. We've provided funding to more than 280 tribal governments to connect over 65,000 tribal households with high-speed internet. We've created over 80,000 plus megawatts of new clean energy power capacity. That's equivalent to 40 Hoover dams. Through the Rural Energy for America program, the administration has funded nearly 7,000 renewable energy and efficiency improvements. And USDA continues to see record demand to the thanks to the historic funding provided by the Inflation Reduction Act that has allowed additional farmers and small business owners in rural America to be able to utilize that important program. Mentioned the New Era program earlier, where that President Biden recently was able to visit a rural electric cooperative to announce funding. We have invested $8.3 billion in 22 rural electric cooperatives to transition to clean energy, supporting nearly 6,500 permanent jobs through that program. And through the Powering Affordable Clean Energy program, we have invested $916 million in 27 projects that will strengthen the nation's energy independence, reduce pollution, and enhance the resiliency of our electric grid. And while many of us refer again to the Inflation Reduction Act as the largest climate bill ever, it again is a huge economic and jobs bill as well. A recent analysis of the economic impact of the Inflation Reduction Act 2 years ago, or in the first 2 years, shows that these investments will add $238 billion to U.S. GDP and generate $50 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenues, while creating 467,000 jobs during the construction phase alone. So that's huge. That's a huge investment. That's a huge economic impact. And again, many jobs being created through this legislation. And that's a lot of numbers. I've given you a lot of numbers there, but implementing this historic legislation is focused both on the what and the how. And we think the how is just as important as these the kind of top lines of these investments. And for us, that means that we have made these investments with equity in mind, leaving no community behind, especially our rural communities that have for too long been underinvested in. We have built infrastructure that reduces emissions and can withstand the impacts of a changing climate. We have made products here in America while supporting good paying jobs, and including union jobs. And we have collaborated closely with partners at the state and local level to get the jobs done. And so we are, again, so grateful for all the work that you have collectively done, the work that you will continue to do to implement these historic investments. We've been so grateful to have you all as partners. And I want to just close by saying that it's been an honor to do this work. We often read about the problems that exist in our communities. There's oftentimes way too many doom and gloom articles written about rural America and our rural communities. But what often gets lost is that our rural communities are full of problem solvers and are full of creative solutions. And so it's been incredible to do this work with you to ensure that those solutions rise to the surface, that the community leaders that have been banging their head against the wall while they're trying to meet the needs of their communities are finally heard and are seeing the resources that they need. We know we have a lot of work to continue to do, and I'm grateful to be in a room full of problem solvers who I know are committed to continuing to do this work. And our theory of the case has always been that when we provide resources to the communities that have been underinvested in, it unlocks those opportunities. President Biden was recently asked over the summer at an event, what kind of America do you want to leave your children and your grandchildren? And the president's answer was an America of hope, fairness, opportunity, and possibilities. And that's the America that this administration has been working towards. That's the America that we know you all have been working towards. And it's really been an honor and a privilege to do this work with you. And I know there's a lot of work ahead, but I know that the people in this room, the people that we're working with, our networks out in the communities, out in the states, that are taking advantage, seizing these opportunities will help us to achieve that goal and help us to achieve that vision. And so want to say thank you again for all of the work that you are doing collectively. I want to thank Michelle and the Groundswell team for the incredible work that they do in the communities that they serve and through these important opportunities to convene folks, bring folks together, and continue to identify those solutions and empower community leaders across the country. So thank you again for having me, Michelle, and thank you all for being here, and thank you all for the important, incredible work that you do. Thanks again.
Just want to really appreciate Will and really appreciate everything that he and the team have done because Lord knows it has taken extraordinary effort to deliver all those numbers. And a lot of those numbers are really just beginning to hit communities. So, there's a whole lot of work for us to continue to do to implement, deploy, get it done, and celebrate the win. 63,000 projects across all 50 states and all the territories. That's really extraordinary.